Cheers. Cheers, mate. Saturdays in the burbs. Oh, it's actually kind of cold. People who never watched the channel before thought I was British for about 3 seconds. No, I am American, and it's about 30 American right now, which is cold. Maybe 35. I didn't bring my jacket, but I'm not about to go back in the house right now. It's just shenanigans going on. But today we are talking training. It's Saturday. I try to do the alliteration or the consonants, the sibilants in this case. What would it be? Super compensation Saturday? Super fit Saturday? I don't know. There's not a good I'm not going to say SS. There's not a good sibilance for Saturday. But we're talking training. We're talking high mileage. I've been doing this series of shorter training videos on topics that are highly requested. This is one that's highly requested. How do I run? A lot of people ask me personally, how do I run high mileage without getting injured? That is a loaded question, and let's unpack that. But before we unpack that, first announcement, Supwell app. By the way, I was at Fleet Feet, the store which shall not be named, which I just named. Don't shop at Fleet Feet. I only shop at Fleet Feet in emergencies. Make sure you shop at runningwarehouse.com and use my link. But I was at Fleet Feet, and someone came up to me and said, Supwell app. That's how they greeted me. They said, Supwell app. And it was my guy and his wife. They were going down to Disney next week to run the Disney Half Marathon, and they were looking for some shoes for his wife. She was actually running the full marathon, and he was running the half marathon, and he was doing it in the Adios Pro 4. And I think they were looking for a new pair of shoes for her to run the marathon. But anyway, I am giving away a daily trainer, a few daily trainers actually, on the Supwell app. So if you're not on the Supwell app, make sure to get on it. It's the best used shoe marketplace. We have the best deals and discounts on running shoes. It's also the best community out there for hobby joggers. So my guy greeted me in the store. He said, Supwell app. And then his wife, she didn't see that he was talking to me. She came up to him and said, hobby jogger. So that's if you consider yourself a hobby jogger, come on into the Supwell app. It's $5 to get started. You can ask and answer any questions related to training. So if topics like this are of interest to you, make sure you are on the Supwell app, because people are asking and answering questions like this all the time. And then we also have exclusive discount codes to places like Running Warehouse, and I'll be working on getting some more exclusive discount codes to other partners there soon. Oh, you can also get the Hobby Jogger Winter Beanie, which I should have on my head for $15. I think those are all the announcements I have today. Oh, I do have gloves, but these are kids' gloves in my pockets because we were walking earlier at the Greenway. How to run high mileage without getting injured. That is our topic today, and I'm going to give you 3 rules for building mileage, maintaining mileage, and safely running high mileage. But before we get into that part, we need to unpack the entire question, how to run high mileage without getting injured. First, high mileage. What is high mileage? There is no set definition of high mileage. Just like if you're lifting weights, there's no set definition of what it means to lift heavy. But for most people, high mileage is anything. Typically, people will talk about 50 plus miles, 60 plus miles per week. We usually measure in miles per week. I personally run usually around 100 miles per week. That has been my target over the past year. And when people say high mileage for professional runners, it's usually 100 plus miles per week. Some professional runners even run 130 plus miles a week, 150 plus miles a week. Kelvin Kiptum, who is the current men's marathon world record, the late great Kelvin Kiptum, rest in peace, he was known to run 180 miles per week. So the definition varies for most hobby joggers. Anything 60 plus miles per week is getting up there. A lot of the standard marathon training programs will have around 40 to 60 miles per week. So if you're starting to hit 70, 80, 90, 100, that's generally what people mean when they say high mileage. However, this is the trick. There is no such thing as high mileage if you design your training and you progress your volume so that it never overtaxes your body. So the trick of running high mileage is to never actually run high mileage. And that's the key, because the way a lot of professionals are doing it, they're not just waking up after running only 80 miles a week in their entire life and then doubling that overnight to 160 miles per week. They are gradually running gradually building up to running high mileage. So when a lot of us are thinking, how do I run high mileage without getting injured? It seems drastic and daunting and like this scary thing. What's up, guys? Yeah, I am. I don't have a TikTok, but you can look up my name. It's Yowana. Yeah. Y-O-W A-N-A. Running. Yeah, A-N-A. Alright, cool. Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys. Two kids asking about the YouTube channel. They were just posted there on their bikes for 30 seconds. I usually try to talk through everything, but they were literally posted there on their bikes for 30 seconds, just straight up staring at me and asking me if I had a TikTok. I should have a TikTok to get the youth into running. This is a new thing. People say I'm bad for running. You're gonna cause the kids to get injured. Bro, if my legacy is causing kids to get patellar tendonitis because they're not sitting on their behinds playing Call of Duty all day or guzzling Bud Light limes and then drinking and driving. This is the thing. Mothers against drunk driving are going to be mad because they're going to have nothing to campaign against because all their sons are going to be out with a busted IT band. I'm bad for the youth. So here's the thing. People think about high mileage as this crazy thing where we jump out of bed and double. That's the exact opposite of what it means or what it looks like to successfully run high mileage. Which brings me to the first rule here, which is the rule of 6. I'm calling this the rule of 6. I looked earlier at my Strava, at my weekly mileage, and before I'm going to pull up my phone because I took notes on this. Before I ever ran a 50-mile week, I ran a 30-mile week 9 times. 9 times. Before I ever ran an 80-mile week, I ran a 50-mile week 6 times. Before I ever ran a 100-mile week, I ran an 80-mile week 9 times. And the first of those 9, you could look at my Strava. I think all this stuff is public. If not, I'll do another video maybe breaking this all down in more detail. But yeah, before I ever ran a 100-mile week, once I ran 89 times. Those were not consecutively. If those were consecutively, that would be about 2.5 months, right? And those were spaced out at least, I think, 6 months to a year. I think my first 80-mile week was the end of 2022 or beginning of 2023. Let's call it 2 years ago, January 2023. And my first 100-mile week was September 2023. So 9 months of running 80 up and down. I wasn't holding 80 the entire time. I was going down to 70, 60. And before I ever ran a 110-mile week, I ran a 100-mile week 6 times. So rule of 6 here. This is my personal rule. And I'm working back here, looking at how I avoided getting injuries while building high mileage. And what I did was I didn't increase more than 10 to 20 miles a week before holding that new mileage for 6 weeks at least. And this is the key to what I'm saying. The secret to running high mileage is to never actually run high mileage. It's not that big of a jump to go from 80 to 90 or go from 30 to 40 if you run 30 miles a week 6 times, and those are spread out over 4 months. However, if your max right now is 20 miles per week, next month you do one 30-mile week, and then the next week you say, hey, I want to do 40. That is the recipe for injury because your body is not even acclimated to that 30 miles a week. So that's why the rule of 6, holding that for 6 weeks, and you'll see it with these next rules, they're not all clumped together. They're going to have to be spread out. It's going to give you at least 3 to 4 months at a certain mileage level before taking another step up. This is a very conservative way to do it, but it's one of the ways that I have avoided injury. Here's the other thing. I wanted to say this at the beginning. I'll say it now. And I'll drop a timestamp. This is the most important thing in this entire video. And I'm probably going to title this video how to run high mileage or 3 rules to run high mileage without getting injured. But there's 0% chance that you can 100% avoid injury. There's no way to avoid injury. I've talked about this a lot recently because it's been a topic that's on my mind. If you want to be an athlete, a high-level athlete, a low-level athlete, a recreational athlete, there's a chance of injury. Anytime you get in the car, there's a chance of getting a car accident. Now, you can be smart about it We can be responsible about our training, but there's always a chance of injury. And especially if we do want to be a high-level athlete and push ourselves, there's going to be a higher chance of injury. So the chance of getting injured when lacing up your shoes and going for a walk are very low. Now, of course, you can always trip and fall. That's not what I'm talking about. But an actual sports-related injury for walking are very low. Same thing with light jogging. And again, this is the secret to running high mileage. If you can trick your body into having this relaxed running or this running feel closer to walking than it is like sprinting, that's how we reduce injury. The entire idea here is we want our body to acclimate to the volume so it feels normal. This is why I'm saying high mileage is not high mileage. High mileage needs to feel normal. It needs to feel like regular mileage. If it feels like high mileage, if it feels like you are running high mileage, that's when you are likely to get injured. And that's why the rule of 6 is so powerful, because every single time when I was at that 80 miles a week, every single time I was thinking about bumping it up to 90, my Achilles would pop up. My knee would feel weird. My legs would feel off. I couldn't run more than a 9-minute pace on some of my runs. I couldn't break through that 80 mile a week threshold because things kept popping up and things just didn't feel right. So you will know if that's what it feels like to run high mileage when everything is sore and you're tight and you're tired. That means the level is too high. You got to bump down, or you got to hold. And that's why it's so important to have your body adapt. And man, it took me 9 months. That's a gosh dang gestation period. A lot of you boys don't even know what a gestation period is. It took me 9 months to break through that 80 miles a week threshold. So that's the key with the rule of 6 here. You will find your threshold, your mileage threshold. If you're currently running 30 miles a week, it's likely going to be 45, 50 is that sticky point where you build up to that and it's hard to break through. Every time you get to 50, you feel tight, you feel weak, you don't have the pop, and that means you got to crank out more weeks at 50. You got to crank out more weeks at 50, and this brings me to my second point. More weeks at 50 with zero speed workouts, okay? That's the next rule. When increasing mileage, you want 0 speed workouts in the first week. Again, this is a very conservative approach, but I was looking through my training logs, and a lot of the time when I was bumping up mileage, I was not doing any speed work, or I was doing something like a 6x800 at marathon pace, which is really light. So I'll say 0 speed work faster than a marathon pace. And again, this is conservative, but this is how we avoid injury, keeping it relaxed. Because injury does not happen from volume, it happens from intensity. Again, think about walking. You could... Bro. It's a gosh dang flock. That's a herd. This is not scripted. Man, if you don't know, now you know. A whole flock of deer coming through the hood. That was crazy. Yeah. Oh gosh, what was I talking about? Injury? Yeah, injury for speed versus volume. Hold on, this is just wild. And they're going still. Yeah, injury doesn't happen from volume most of the time. What I was saying before the deer came through, think about going out for a walk. Again, you could walk probably 100 miles a week. You could walk probably 3 hours. 100 miles a week would be a lot of time. But you could walk, likely, if you're watching this and you're interested in running high mileage, you could probably walk for 3 hours a day without getting injured. That is volume. Walking is still volume. Now, could you do a sprint workout every day and not get injured? Probably not. And that's the way to think about it. When increasing volume, you want to keep the stress on the body as low as possible. That's the rule of zero. Zero speed workouts. Zero speed workouts on that first week. So think about moving from, again, 30 to 45 miles per week. If I'm running 30 miles per week right now and I bump it up to 40 next week or 35 next week and I've never hit that before, don't do speed workouts. And this is why it's so important to do aerobic base building periods. And that's not an off season. An aerobic base building. Now Charles is going out. Somebody the other day, there's a thread, and they said, see, whenever my name pops up now on the internet, it's very polarizing. Some people like me and some people don't, but it's crazy. Whenever my name pops up, it's like an excuse for people to say all the things they don't like about me. Oh, this video's... The new one is distracting. Somebody said the videos were too distracting and we have enough distractions in this world. I agree. There are a lot of distractions in 2025, which is why I don't have a TikTok. I probably should from a business standpoint, and maybe I will one day. But right now, long form only. Distracting long form. That's my bread and butter. Distracting long form. It's like a TikTok within the video. You never know what's going to pop out. It could be kids on bikes. It could be a herd of deer. It could be a spouse backing out of the driveway at 35 miles per hour. Those deer were pretty crazy. If you are increasing your volume, 30 to 35 miles per week, be conservative. Do not do speed workouts on those first weeks. And what will make it easier to do that is having a true aerobic base building period. A period where you're strictly focused on the aerobic system. Lower heart rate, lower intensity, lots of relaxed mileage, not having to worry about developing a certain pace range as we would for the marathon, where we're so focused on running our 6:52 per mile pace if we're going for a 3-hour marathon, or our 9:09 pace if we're going for a 4-hour marathon. Aerobic base building, we can just focus on mileage, just focus on developing that foundation that then enables all of the other training, all of those other zones to get faster, stronger, and more powerful. So I have different videos on zone 2, on relaxed running. This is what I'm talking about when I say aerobic base building. You want to do a lot of your miles with a lower heart rate. This will help you burn fat rather than carbs. Because for most of us, when we're running the marathon, the key limiter is we're running out of carbs. We can't hold that pace because we're burning through all of our energy stores. By building that aerobic base, we train our mitochondria to get stronger, to be better powerhouses of the cells. And we train our body to rely on fat, to pull from the fat stores. We have essentially unlimited fat stores. And so athletes who run more miles per week, they can run at a higher pace and use a greater percentage of fat versus carbs. So someone who runs at 80 miles per week and they've been doing that for 4 years, at a 7:30 pace, they might be burning 80% fat and 20% carbs, versus someone who runs 20 miles per week and they've been doing that for 4 years, they might be burning 50% carbs versus that 20% at that 7:30 pace. So that's what the aerobic base building period is. And if you do this correctly, you can run super low and slow, super relaxed, dang near almost walking if you want to build up that volume, strengthen your muscles, strengthen your body, to get those benefits of higher mileage without also introducing the higher injury risk of speed as we're increasing. So that is the rule of zero. That's the rule of zero. Zero speed workouts on those first weeks. Now, you'll know when you're ready, but if you're feeling, for me, I'll just say how I'm feeling. When I'm increasing my volume, my legs do not have the same snap. So if I'm up at 120, 130, usually, or recently, I can hit 110, 120 and feel good. But once I pass that, man, the legs have no pop. My lower back, this is the thing for me too. And it's almost a central nervous system fatigue where my lower back feels heavier. My legs don't feel like they have the same verve I'm not kicking, I don't have that drive, just keep it relaxed then. No speed workouts. That is when we introduce the injury risk. And there's certain times, and this is not a discussion for this video, when to push through fatigue and when not to, but there's certain times where it's smart to push through fatigue. And that would be closer to when we're actually running a goal race, a half marathon or a marathon. But for this, no. If we're trying to get stronger aerobically, which is the entire purpose of running high mileage, it's not mileage for the sake of mileage. Well, I do mileage for the sake of mileage because I like it, but in terms of structured training, it's not just mileage for the sake of mileage, it's mileage to develop our aerobic system. And to do that, we don't need to be running fast at all. Now, if you do want some guidance for intensity, you can use the Zone 2 method, roughly 75%. We got kids now? That's my neighbor's kids. Roughly 75% of heart rate max or lower is how people do it. I don't train by heart rate, and the more advanced and experience you get, I'm going to do a better job of not railing against heart rate so much. My position on it is that it can be a useful tool for learning how to train. Heart rate training is like training wheels. It's a useful tool for learning how to train and getting some external data that tells you what you should start to know about your own body. So I know what it feels like to be running a 7:30 pace. I know exactly what it feels like when my heart rate's at 145. I know what it feels like to be running marathon pace. I don't need to look at my watch anymore to know what pace I'm running. And that's the type of awareness that we should develop to get stronger as runners, because it's the same awareness that will then tell us, oh, this knee feels off, I should take a day off. Or I'm overly sick today, not just I have a cold. I feel like if I run today, it's gonna push me over the edge. It's the same exact awareness we need. It's the same skill. Knowing what pace we're going and knowing when to push and when to pull in training, it's all related. And that's why we use these things, our watches, the recovery scores and all that. We use these all as tools in our toolkit to help us train better, to use our sixth sense. We want to use our sixth sense to learn our bodies better. So that is the rule of zero speed workouts when increasing. Last rule here, it's the 3-1. What is the 3-1 rule? 3 weeks up, 1 week down. So if you remember that first rule, the rule of 6 weeks, we want to be going at least 6 weeks at a certain volume level before pushing up. Again, that is on the conservative side, but that's what's worked for me. The 3-1, that will make it at least 9 weeks or 8 weeks, because say we're at 30 miles, we bump it up to 40. We only want to hold that 40 miles a week for 3 weeks before bumping down to 1. Yes, it's conservative, but taking these structured down weeks where we're cutting to, could even be 60% of volume, anywhere from 50% to 80% of volume, depending on how we're feeling, these will leave us so fresh, so refreshed coming off of them and ready to attack it again. So what I've done a lot in the past is 3 weeks up when I was building to 80, 3 weeks at 80, 1 week down at 60, wasn't building a lot of intensity into that first session or first set at 80, but after we come back on that down week, bang, that's when we start banging some workouts. That's a great way to train. And the beauty of this all put together is if you use the rule of 6, which is we want at least 6 weeks, not consecutively necessarily, but we want 6 weeks under our belt at a certain mileage level before increasing, plus the 3-1 rule, that will take us essentially a full training block, a full 12 to 16 week training block roughly. So what this is telling you is that you should not increase your volume drastically throughout one training block. You want to use each training block as a stepping stone to the next level, which is exactly what I've done in the past, right? We don't just go from 50 to 100. If our max is 50, let's take it 10 to 20 miles a week up to the next level. A great heuristic or a great shortcut that I've heard in the past is looking at average weekly max volume for 1 month. What was your average weekly max volume for 1 month? So if you ran I think when I'm standing here too, because there's a lot of traffic coming this way, I just get more distracted myself. There's 4 weeks in a month. If you ran 40, 40, 60, 40, that would be 40 plus 40 is 80 plus 60 is 140, 180. Divided by 4 would be 45, right? Yeah, 45. So that tells you, hey, we can now bump it up to 45 per week max. So taking your highest month, dividing that by 4, and using that as your starting point for your next mileage target. So if you did 40, 40, 60, 40, that would take you to, I really hope I got that correct. I think I did. That would take you to 45 miles per week as your next target. So there you go. Rule of 0, don't run any speed workouts when you're increasing. Rule of 6, run 6 weeks at a mileage target or at a new mileage level before jumping up again. And then the 3-1 rule, take 3 weeks up, 1 week down. We build fitness usually in 2 to 3 week cycles anyway. And for me, taking these down weeks really helps me feel fresh. I do not like keeping the volume up all the time or keeping the intensity up all the time. And so what I'll do sometimes is, even if I keep the volume at 100 miles per week, I'll take a week where I don't run a lot of workouts. Now, one of the questions you might have is, what about the 10% rule? A lot of people talk about the 10% rule for increasing mileage, and that's saying don't increase your mileage more than 10% from week to week. That's fine. That's also a good rule, and it will be pretty conservative. So that's saying if you're at 30 miles per week right now, don't go up to more than 33 next week. That is even more on the conservative side. If you run 30 miles a week 100 times, so if you've been running 30 miles a week for the last 2 years, you could probably bump up to 40 next week and be fine. So it is very conservative rule. It is a good shortcut, again, for keeping in mind not bumping up super high, super fast. But what these 3 will do is they give you more of a long-term view. How long should I hold the mileage level before increasing? What type of intensity should I be working into my program when I am building volume? And how much recovery should I take? So these are a general guideline, and a lot of these are thinking on the weekly level, right? These are all around weekly mileage. Other things to think about are day to day. How do you feel? I personally do not do run streaks. I don't run every day. I will take a day off whenever I need it. So I would also recommend that, unless you have a specific run streak going and it's already been going, go ahead. But for me personally, I like the flexibility to take a day off completely whenever I need it, or just taking very light recovery days. So if you are on a run streak, or you're the type of person like me who just likes to run every day, then doing a 4-mile recovery run on the weekends instead of doing your normal 10 miles. That will be a good way to let the body recover. So those are my 3 rules personally for running high mileage. There's lots more I could talk about on this topic, but let me know all your questions. This is one that I get asked a ton. How do I stay healthy while building mileage? There's other things that go into it, of course, like sleep, making sure we're averaging at least 7 hours a night of sleep. I've talked about this a lot recently. Food, making sure we are never under-fueled and refueling within the first 30 minutes, getting that big meal within the first 2 hours. I'm trying to think of more stuff just so that I have it all. I don't know. It's hard too, because each of these training talks is designed to, of course, I do these as one video. It's designed to be a video where you get the information, but it's also, they're designed to all complement each other. So if you watch the channel every day, you'll pull tidbits from here and there. But that's all I have for you guys today. I appreciate you. Don't forget to sign up for the Supwell app. Get entered in the free Daily Trainer giveaway. I am closing it this weekend. I'm finally going to close it this weekend. But get on the Supwell app. It's the best community for hobby joggers. We also have the podcast now. Go to supwell.io to evaluate running shoes on the running shoe database. You can also get matched with your best running shoes there. And then hobbyjogger.com for all the merch, especially if you want the beanie. You can get the beanie for $15 with the Supwell app code. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know all your questions below. I'll be back tomorrow with another show.